Hey everyone, Nick Engvall here. Before we get into today's episode, I want to tell you about some of the people that make the sneaker history community and this podcast possible. It's more important than ever to think about who you give your money to when you're buying clothing to go with your kicks. Our friends at Guilty Goods started their brand with a goal of giving back, especially to the communities that make sneaker culture possible. With every purchase from Guilty Goods, at least 10% of the proceeds are donated to organizations like Big Brothers and Big Sisters, the Susan G. Komen Foundation, the Movement for Black Lives, and many more. You can save 30% on your order by using the code HISTORY at guiltygoods.us. Again, that's history at guiltygoods.us for 30% off, and you can feel good about your purchase knowing you're supporting a meaningful cause. Sneakers are all about presentation, and if you're like me, displaying your kicks at home or in the office is just as important as when they're on your feet. Sneaker Throne makes sneaker display cases featuring customizable LED lights, drop-side cases to showcase the entire side of the shoe, not just the heel or the toe, the whole shoe. They've also got display cases for trading card collectors and hat collectors. To me, it's the perfect way to display your collection. You can save at least 10% on your Sneaker Throne order by using the code HISTORY at sneakerthrone.com. That's history at sneakerthrone.com. If you're a Patreon supporter or a member of our Discord community, you already know about Kicks with V hot sauce and his small batch, locally sourced hot sauce. V has been one of the biggest supporters of sneaker history and the podcast since the early days. He's currently the defending champion in our community trivia nights competition. Kicks with V hot sauce has been a huge hit with the community. You can save 10% on your order by using the code SneakerHistory10 at kickswithvhots.com. That's SneakerHistory10 at kickswithvhots.com. Now, you're probably here because you like sneakers, and if you join the Discord, you know our community is about so much more than that. Whether it's the marathon-like community calls, trivia night debates, the in-person meetups, or just sharing our favorite experiences, we found that although we have such different backgrounds, we all have some unexpected shared passions. Not only does the entire community look out for each other when it comes to releases, we're like a support group for life in general. You can join the Discord community for free by heading to the show notes of this episode. After you're done listening to this episode, tell someone you like their kicks today. You never know how far a simple compliment can take you, and we all know how good it feels to have someone show their appreciation. Now let's get into today's episode.
Jordan trying to shake off Starks. Oh, what a move! With no regard for human life. Final seconds. Bryant for the win.
Iverson against Gill. The crowd on its feet. Allen for the win.
Welcome to the Sneaker History Podcast.
What up? What up? Welcome back to the Sneaker History Podcast. My name is Nick Engvall. I'm with my guys Robbie Falke and Mike Guillory tonight to talk some kicks. What's going on, fellas? How you doing?
Yo, doing good, man. You know, same old right now, but I can't complain. How about you, Robbie?
I'm doing good. Since Sunday, we've had a commitment towards fitness and eating better from 2 weeks straight of not working out at all and postmating everything. So, got some miles in the past 2 days, had some salads, feeling good.
Nice.
Stuff,
Probably feeling good from that.
Definitely do. Shout out to On. So I've been wearing those running shoes every time I run. It's like, well, I got free runners. Might as well actually use them. And I genuinely enjoy wearing them. I feel kind of silly having all Nike stuff on. And then it's like the On shoes. But there's, as someone who doesn't run and is not fast, they just feel good on my feet and they help me go a little bit further than I would have, which still is not that far relatively. So I recommend a pair if you're looking for a pair of runners.
Nice.
Do you happen to know what model it is?
Yeah, so I've been wearing two different ones, the Cloud Stratus and the Cloud Nimbus, I believe.
Right on. We'll link to those in the description for you guys too. I, on the other hand, am still on a anti-exercise, eat as terrible as possible diet. It's basically been like, I guess we're on week 4 of quarantine here in LA. So I'm on my 4th, going into my 5th straight week of carb loading for whatever I may be carb loading for.
Man, ramen, we got ramen probably 4 times in 10 days. It's like, oh man, we gotta chill.
Ramen is my weakness, man. So I have this weird thing, and I don't know why. Maybe it's because I didn't grow up in a family with money, and we were really pretty poor. But I love ramen noodles still, and I always have. But it's always weird because I find myself like, if I have like, I'll have like just cheap Top Ramen, whatever brand, I like Sapporo noodles, which are like the baller, like 70-cent packages.
Oh, snap.
But I'll have that. I'll have that, and then I'll have like a glass of Crown, or like I'll smoke like a $20 cigar in the same day that I eat a bunch of 50-cent ramen noodles. It's just a weird thing, and I have no idea why it's that way, but it's been that way for a really long time for me. So thankfully, I enjoy ramen noodles. Throw some frozen vegetables, some eggs, some spinach, all whatever you want in there, and mix it up sometimes. But just as long as you got sriracha, I'm happy. I'm a happy man at that point. So
No, we're dumb. We've been dropping like $50 on ramen delivery. It's not, yeah.
See, I started trying to make it at my house. So.
Hey, man, the hotter the better. But yeah, enough food talk. I was like, I can go on a whole tangent about what I've been eating, but I'm not going to.
So we want to talk about, obviously, a little bit of news, and probably get into some Kevin Durant sneakers. But before we do that, we wanted to shout out a review on iTunes that we got from, let's see, John316A. He says, love the podcast, guys. Keep the content coming. There's some easy choices for NBA players that are only playing because God made them athletic freaks. Granted, they put time in the gym. I'm a Laker fan, but Dwight, Shaq, Wilt are at the top. If they were 6'4", none of them would have been in the NBA. There are a few players that you can see put in a lifetime of work to develop skills. Had they been given more athletic ability, could be the greatest of all time. Nash, Kyrie, Steph. To the point, none of them can defend simply because they don't have the athletic ability to lateral move and physically defend top guards. So that is a super dope review. And specifically, he gets into something I've been meaning to talk about and wanted to put out to our listeners. So Robbie and Rohit have been recording, kind of more of a sports-focused version of the podcast for the past month or so. And this is in response to their episode discussing the comments from, it was Harden, right?
Yeah.
And, I think we've been toying with the idea of moving the sports podcast into kind of its own lane, so you could subscribe to both of them individually. So if that's something that you're into, leave us a comment or DM us on Instagram or Twitter, or, just tweet at us, whatever, because we're really trying to make this as easy as possible for you guys to get the content from us that you like. And I think, like, in my mind, like, that might be a way that we shift and go a little bit further into sports, and then maybe get a little bit nerdier into sneakers on this particular podcast. So, but we also want to make sure that, that makes sense. So if you're cool with us just rolling the way we've been rolling, we're kind of getting two variations of the podcast on this one subscription that you have. Hopefully you're subscribed. If you're not, please do. Let us know. Leave us a comment, tweet at us, DM us on Instagram, whatever. We just want to know what you're thinking and how you feel about that idea. So obviously, John316A, thank you for the review. If you guys have time to leave us a review, we would definitely appreciate it, especially on iTunes. It's really the best way for us to kind of grow this community that we're building here around the podcast, and to get in front of new people, because, the more you guys leave us reviews, the more it elevates our podcast in, the world of sneaker podcasts to other people, for other people to be able to find us. So we definitely appreciate it. And we look forward to reading reviews on the next episode.
Here's an example of how it could benefit listening to, we call it the Know Your Roots aspect of the podcast. So we had Mosh Customs on, and we had this fantastic interview with him. But then on the sports side, we talked about a lot of his shoes in detail and how, he works with the WWE. So it's just like added stuff to kind of go along, but just more sport focused.
Yeah. And I think too, like, you guys have done a great job with, just getting more into, I guess I would say more into like athletes and their on-court
performance in the basketball world, or, like even like you said, the WWE stuff. I think, there's lots of ways that it could go, but we want to make sure that everybody is, kind of able to pick and choose. Cause I know that podcasts are a really finicky thing when it comes to subscribing, because you subscribe for one thing. And I've been on the other side of that, where you're like, wait, they don't even talk about the shit that I wanted them to talk about anymore. So, but obviously we hope you guys just listen to us bullshit, because that's basically what this is about. And that said, we're going to get into some BS right now, I guess. Before we do, what are you guys rocking and copping this week?
Today I had on to go to the grocery store for 10 minutes was the Human Made Adidas Solar Hue. Super comfortable, super basic, super slept on. What I'm copping right now, I don't know, probably looking at those Reebok questions, the black and white ones, or white and black ones, but the ones where you scratch off the black, they turn gold. So those are pretty high on the radar, I think, right now. At some point. What about you, Robbie? Robbie's talking to himself.
Yeah, so, keep this in mind. I'm going to say that I put miles in, so 2 miles. But that's the only time I've left the house. So I literally have been wearing these Cloud Stratuses by On, only time I leave the house. But I did sit around yesterday afternoon, and I took the cool gray 4s out, and I put some white laces in it. So I touched another pair of shoes. When it comes to coppin', I keep telling myself that I do not need the DMP6. I really want them. But I looked in the closet, and I have 5 pairs of gold shoes already, like black and gold, gold and white, whatever. And that's definitely not a summer look, that, high top black suede or nubuck, whatnot. So I'm just constantly telling myself no. So they're on my radar, though.
That's kind of how I am with everything. There's nothing that I'm, fully committed to pulling the trigger on as far as copping goes. The questions that Mike mentioned are obviously on my list. If you know anything about me, you know that those are a must have. But the Nike Air Max Total Orange is probably, the Air Max 90 Total Orange is probably the next closest thing for me. And as far as what I rock today, I didn't actually do much. So I was checking the mail and some Sandal Boys slides, which I don't want to even plug them because Fran isn't connected to the business anymore. So disregard that anyway. But yeah. So I think we should just run through some interesting stuff that came out, I guess yesterday, around the coronavirus stuff with the companies that are kind of stepping up and helping to supply masks and various, personal protective equipment for people instead of, manufacturing shoes or apparel like they normally would. So it's kind of a two-sided conversation, because I want to talk about obviously the footwear brands. We've seen Nike, Vans, Under Armour, New Balance. I'm trying to think, was there anybody else that I saw all kind of contributing either masks or various, things to people affected by, the coronavirus. I also saw an interesting thing yesterday, day before, that I thought we should talk about. And Vans is actually trying to help small businesses through this foot the bill customization program that they're basically partnering with small businesses. So the gist of it is that it's called Foot the Bill Customization Program, and it's designed to assist around 80 independent small businesses ranging from skate shops, restaurants, music venues, community-driven spaces, et cetera, et cetera. They make limited edition eras and slip-ons, and they turn them into the Vans customs. So I say that, and I think like it's really cool that Vans is doing this. I also see that, and I'm like, well, hasn't Vans already been doing this? Is that anything really different than what they've already done? Not that they need to be, doing anything, right? Like at this point, like every company is trying to figure out how to keep the lights on. I understand that. I'm not trying to pick on anybody, but I just saw it and thought, well, that's kind of weird. And then we talked about the Vans situation in Hong Kong, whatever that was 6 months ago, where basically they denied making the customs for one of the people that had the highest votes because of the political ramifications that, potentially would have come from it, because it was the design was in support of the protesters in Hong Kong, right? So my question to you guys is, do you expect companies to go out and proactively do things differently than they already have been? Or, and the second part of that question, does it apply to all the footwear brands, or do you just, cause like we can look at Nike and think Nike's going to throw $15 million at this. That's expected because we know Nike does that, whether they do it from a place of it's a great marketing tool or a place of they really want to help. I don't want to get into that conversation because it's not our place to judge that kind of thing. But how do you guys feel about what has been done with all of these brands? And do you think it's enough? Do you expect more? Or is it just, do you feel like it's just become like more of a marketing thing at this point?
I mean, it's hard to say what to expect from people, especially in this situation, because I mean, we want the big companies who have the ability to help, but at the same time, we still look at the safety of the people who are in those factories. If they're not just throwing money at it, if they're trying to produce product like Nike, New Balance is trying to produce masks, so it still involves people. So, I mean, I think it's awesome that they're, doing what they do. I mean, help any way you can. Yeah, I guess to a degree, I expect the big players to be able to at least throw, some assistance when it comes to funds to the issue. Maybe help support, the creation of, ventilators or whatever it may be, whatever is missing. And if there's a shortage of cash, if they can help donate with some cash, I think that, yeah, I expect that. But I think making the materials such as the mask or, I think that's kind of above and beyond. I really didn't expect them to do anything like that. And in most cases, people throw money at the problem and see if it sticks. But I don't know. I'm glad that some of them are helping. I don't expect smaller brands to really be able to do much because they're trying to make sure they can stay afloat, because a lot of those guys are probably having to let go of employees and things like that. But those bigger guys, Under Armour, Nike, Adidas, New Balance, the Reebok, those guys, I expect them to maybe, like I say, if they can't produce masks or produce equipment, I see them putting a little money towards it to at least, help with efforts.
So it's a really good point to make that not every brand can. So if you can pivot into making something that can help, you should. But retailers are going to be hit hard now and probably hit harder the next couple months, because for things to go back to quote unquote normal, it's going to take quite a bit of time to have people coming into stores. So Nike can do that. Under Armour can do that. Adidas doesn't own their own factories. So for them to go and start making masks, it's going to cost them extra money to do so. Nike has the materials and owns the factory. So they can do that at some places. They don't own every factory, but RMI here in Oregon, innovation, it's a whole factory. They can pump stuff out right there. So anybody, if you have the means to, you should do what you can. If you don't, then I'm not going to fault anybody or say you're not a good company for not helping. With that said, there's tons that, we can do. It's funny how Bill Gates seems to be the calming voice right now. If you watch any of the news, it's like Bill Gates is all up in the news, like telling you how it more realistically is going to be than the president. So like he definitely has the means to do so and can do a lot. And he has been doing a lot across the world for many years. So those people are showing up, and that's great. But when it comes to like footwear and retailers, like they're entering a dark day. Like if you can, do it. But I definitely don't think it's expected for everybody to lend a hand when there's going to be some suffering financially.
Yeah, I do think that you know, I guess it's hard for me to separate, you know, the types of companies that are typically, you know, I guess doing what I would consider the right thing or really about people and you know, not that they're not a company and not, you know, the bottom line is they need to make money if they're a business. But there's a lot of companies, you know, I don't want to like name anybody, but you guys know one of the companies that I was working for most recently that, you know, ended my contract with them, and they own their factories as well. And it's hard for me to not expect more from them. They recently let go of a lot of people. They closed their factories down, you know, pretty quickly as soon as things started to kind of get tense. And I think that was smart in one sense because you're going to protect your employees. They're going to be safer in theory as long as they still have that job, right? But when I look at the way that, you know, certain companies are marketed, right? Just to use Nike as an example, Nike being the kind of forefront of fighting for people's rights, standing up for, you know, diversity, inclusion, like really making that a part of their brand. You kind of just naturally come to expect them to put their money, you know, it's kind of like put up or shut up type situation when shit hits the fan, like it has with the coronavirus. And I am like struggling to understand, you know, not understand me as someone who loves this whole footwear business, this whole, the whole idea of marketing, the whole idea of like content and connecting with people through storytelling. I have a really hard time just turning off my expectations for companies who I feel have stepped up to the plate in the past and now seem to be kind of backing off of that commitment. And I don't know that is something that's just a personal thing. I was curious, like everybody listening, if that's something that you think about. But one thing that I think about a lot right now is that as we come through this coronavirus stuff and COVID-19 and we try to find some form of normal in the next, you know, 6 months, year, 5 years, whatever that looks like, you know, we don't know that that's even going to be a possibility. But one thing that's going to be way more important for me, and it was already important for me to begin with, but now it's like, I want to know exactly who I'm supporting with every dollar I spend, whether that's, you know, my local taco spot that I'm buying nachos from, or, you know, the sneakers that I'm buying, or the clothing that I'm buying, or the people that I pay to make our t-shirts, you know, like all of these things become exponentially more important for me personally. And I actually think that there's going to be a lot more people looking at things like that, because if I was, you know, 17, 18 years old right now, looking at the world falling apart, I'm looking at all the brands going, well, they claim to have had, you know, the $1 billion, you know, valuation here, or we just got 500 million in investments, or, you know, like Kylie Jenner is worth $1 billion, or whatever those things are. If those companies that have these big numbers associated with them financially, if they aren't committing to doing the right things in a time right now where things are really difficult, then why would I want to give them my money afterwards? Because they've kind of like blew the opportunity to step up to the plate in a sense, you know? Does that make sense? So for you, Robbie, do you see that as, I mean, I know you kind of already are that way anyway, but do you think that'll be even more heavy in your thought process when it comes to buying things in the future?
I mean, yes and no. I like to think that this won't have a lot of effect on my life, even going forward and into my wallet, but you never know. Yeah, I mean, that's a tough one.
Yeah, I don't know. So everybody that's out there listening, I pose the same question to you. Like, are we going to become more conscious of who we're giving our money to, or is this just going to be one of those things where, we get like back to normal and forget that there was, a giant virus that took over the world for a while? All right, so let's get into, I guess something potentially a little more positive than coronavirus stuff, depending on how you feel. But we want to talk about the new Kevin Durant shoe, the KD 13, and I guess probably the history of Kevin Durant shoes, right? Because we can't talk about the latest one without talking about how we got to it, right? So I think I'm gonna toss this to Robbie because I know Robbie has a lot of experience with some of those KDs. So you want to kick it off, Robbie?
Yeah, I mean, I guess we could start off by saying we've come a long way since 2009, where we probably had one of the more basic looking signature shoes there's ever been, and that's with a point. Kevin Durant always tried to keep his shoes for a long time under the $100 price point. Then it was $120, then it was $160, now it's like $180. But back with the KD1 was, very few colorways came out, very simplistic. The two things I always found really cool about it, and maybe you've noticed this, the old KD logo, it was much more fat and rounded. It was like a pudgy KD logo. They also did that with Kyrie. They switched his logo subtly. But the KD1 had a really cool logo. And then the swoosh was really cool. So the swoosh played in to this like wrap detail. So it looked like the swoosh was going all the way around and they could do some cool fading things. But it was ultimately like a Nike BB mid, but with Kevin Durant stuff on it. So before we go into the 13, but do you guys remember that first one? Any fond Seattle memories? Or I guess, no, OKC was the first year he wore it. So yeah, any fond second year KD?
Well, they had a Supersonics colorway. That was probably my favorite one of the KD one.
So yeah, I think that's my favorite too, because right, that was the KD one, if I remember right, was like almost like split toned, right? So one side would be yellow and one side would be white with green, with like in the Sonics colorway. But it also was like it had almost like different materials on every one, right?
Yes. Well, they were mostly leather. So I mean, for the most part, you were looking at a leather thing going on. But
gotcha. Yeah, I think for me the only one that really stood out, there was obviously a black and orange one that stood out, but the Sonics one was the only one I really cared about because at that time, that was the end of Seattle basketball until the NBA gets their head straight and puts the team back. But
well, it's interesting to see how Kevin Durant's first signature shoe, and LeBron's for that matter, didn't come with a lot of colorways, didn't come with a lot of special things. You saw Paul George 1, and then the Giannis, and especially Kyrie, have all these elaborate colorways to go with their shoes from the jump. KD gave you OKC away, OKC home, some supersonic stuff, and like a black pair. So not a lot of options there. Nick brought up a really cool point of how the shoe was split in half. They would use that same kind of detail throughout the KD line, most notably the KD 8 Christmas, where it was like white on the outside and like black and fiery on the innards. Mm-hmm. I mean, I guess the medial side. So it's just funny how that's coming to be used many times. But now we have, the talk of the town, what we've been seeing across all the blogs, the KD 13, which we'll go into more, but it looks like a glorified team basketball shoe. It's rocking the quad wire construction at the top, double stack zoom in the front. But outside of that, very standard lacing system. The most notable feature would probably be the swoosh that goes from the upper onto the midsole or mudguard. But they've kind of come full circle. Like the first KD was very, very simple, and this KD is also looking very simple. We've seen 6 colorways so far too. You guys have any love-hate relationship with this or favoritism towards any of the new colorways?
I actually think when you talk about going full circle to the first KD, I think the KD 1 had more character than this one because you hit it right on the head. It looks like a glorified team shoe. When I look at it, if I didn't know it was a KD sneaker, I would walk right by it. This really reminds me, and I think Robbie told me the name of it yesterday, and it still slips my mind, but it reminds me of the shoe I think it was the AD used to play in before he started playing at Kobe's some years back when he was still in New Orleans, and it just doesn't do anything for me. The colorways don't do anything for me. We're going to get deeper into that, the hype. That's the actual name for it, the hype colorway. But yeah, I think they try too hard with that particular colorway, and just everything else is I'm not going to buy it. I mean, the technology piece sounds amazing, but it's not. I don't think I'm enticed enough to buy it unless it goes down to, in the low $60 range where I actually want to tear it up on a basketball court.
Yeah. It was the Air Max Audacity.
Audacity, not Attitude. Yeah, Audacity.
The audacity of you to get it mixed up with Attitude.
Oh, look at that setup.
Yeah, I don't really. I think this is just like I don't think it's ugly. I just don't think it's a signature shoe. And I think the stories that they're trying to tell, at least on these first handful, right? Like Planet of Hoops, Hype, the whatever that R&B shoe is, Chill. They're just not. They just don't resonate with me, I guess. Which it's kind of just weird to see elements of what I would say, Virgil Abloh's Off-White kind of inspiration, right? Like the exaggerated stitching, like midway through the swoosh, the kind of overlay of the swoosh onto that like mid panel or, midsole panel. All those things just seem really forced for a performance basketball shoe. And on the same, line of thinking, they seem, I guess, I don't know what the right word for it is, but they just seem uninspired when you can look at the shoe and see how basic the shape is, and then see all of those things that kind of just look like, oh, okay, you pulled this idea off of other things. I don't know. I'm just overall, I'm kind of disappointed in it visually. I am pretty curious about the performance because I thought the KD 12 was pretty nice and it's super comfortable on foot. Like, not like the biggest fan of it, aesthetically, but yeah, I don't know. It's a little leaves much to be desired for me.
Very meh.
Yeah.
See, there's a bread colorway that looks cool just because I think all of us are kind of conditioned to think black and red looks good on a shoe, because it does. But those are pretty cool. There's like a white colorway with a black swoosh and multicolor outsole. Those kind of remind me of like the Net Cutter Society line from a couple years ago. But just not at the caliber of a signature shoe. And I think that's the same kind of problem I would say about the Paul George 4. It just doesn't give me that, and to keep using the same word again, that signature vibe. Like I'm getting something different that not just any NBA player is going to have, or any player for that matter. Next, I think we all feel pretty differently. I'm going to kind of flip-flop back now that we talked about the 13 a little bit. But looking back at it, Kevin Durant, when compared to like LeBron, doesn't nearly get the same kind of like, I want to say royal treatment because he's the king. Like he doesn't quite get the same level of treatment with his Nike shoes than LeBron does. Like we see LeBron with PEs for every single game. Every one of LeBron's debut colorways have a story behind it, or they make up a nickname and there's something really kind of telling behind it. Just having a black and gray shoe without any kind of like, throwbacks to the Brooklyn Nets or, any branding of his team feels like a missed opportunity when the best kind of colorway you give us is a quote unquote hype colorway.
I mean, when you call something hype, you know you're trying too hard at that point. I mean, you can look at the design and know what he's going for. I mean, he's trying to play off of the high fashion shoes with what you see sometimes was that the Versace chain reaction with the chains all over it, and he has butterflies on it. I mean, trying to give you that high fashion look since he does like he's a big fashion head, but there's just no way I would buy any of those again for retail.
I guess here's a follow-up to that too then. So like LeBron can sell shoes with Laker colorways. We've seen the LeBron 7 that we're all kind of salivating over that has the mismatched Laker colorway. Mm-hmm. Could you have put like a Brooklyn Nets branding on here or something tied to more his basketball, his direct play onto the shoe? Like, would that have made a difference, or would you like to see stuff like that?
How are you going to do it though? Because like the LeBron has done so well and simple at the same time, where it's mismatched. Got the purple and gold and gold and purple and the other. I think if they did something like that, it'd be cool. I mean, I may not be the biggest fan of mismatched shoes all the time, but I think there is a time and place for them now as I continue to, to see them. And you just got to be careful because black and white shoes are so basic that they get overlooked. Like the recent black and white pack or cookies and cream pack, whatever they called it, with the 3 signatures, the PG4, KD. When was it KD? No, it was the Greek Freak, PG4, and then the Kyrie 6 all came in the black and white colorway. And it just seemed kind of like, we just want to put out another colorway of it. So you just got to be really careful with the particular colors that you get with the Brooklyn Nets. I mean, put some things that represent KD and Brooklyn. I think you may have a winning combination there, but you got to be real careful with it, I think.
I mean, I think throwing NBA logos on sneakers limits the people that are going to buy it. I think that Adidas kind of proved this, with the crazy 8 Brooklyn Nets that they did. I don't know when that was, 5-6 years ago, where the shoe's like, a pretty cool mix of black and white, and the Nets logo on the tongue. And to me, I would potentially buy the shoe without that Nets logo. I think there's a lot of ways they could go about that though, right? One of the ways that like comes to mind for me is making it customizable with, whatever removable Velcro type patches, where you could throw in, considering Nike has the licensing agreement with the NBA, you could throw in team logos with shoes, or maybe sell them even separately where you could customize them, thinking of like the, Tinker Hatfield 3s or whatever, where you've got like the elephant print swoosh. All those kind of things always are a little bit more appealing than just a regular release, right? Because I think all of us that wear sneakers and pay attention to them have either at one time customized shoes, had somebody customize a shoe, or at least have the thought, or like, maybe we swap out laces like Robbie was saying with the cool grays. I think that is kind of a natural way for them to pull those licensing agreements together, cover the bases to have a shoe that might represent the Nets, and yet at the same time not be stuck to being a Nets shoe for people that aren't Nets fans. And the one thing that I think about the KD line, more recently, that I just think that they are missing a lot of opportunities. And I don't know if, this might have something to do with the fact that KD has been, plagued with injuries for the past few years. And obviously he's gotten a lot of hate over the past few years as well. But there are so many things that I think, the storytelling aspects of, what he does on court or what he does off court are still the key to good story, to good, product design and storytelling, marketing, whatever you want to call it. So the first thing that came to mind when I said that is, he did this court in San Francisco last summer, and it's super colorful. It's like his charity foundation, built it. And those are the types of things where, like, why wouldn't you just make a shoe with that same graphics or same color palette and, kind of create the moment for people that are fans of KD? Because even though he was only in the Bay Area for, a short amount of time, people liked him there, like the Warriors fans are dedicated, and I think that the same could be said about any signature athlete, right? It's all about, like, really putting an effort to connect with the community that's supporting, the athlete. And if everything is kind of this, like, I don't want to say like obscure, but like you look at like the KD 13s and the chill based on R&B, an R&B playlist, the bread, obviously off of like, Bread 11, the hype that we talked about. I don't have anything against hype. I think that like it's kind of funny that they put all that stuff together. It would have been even funnier if they did like a blank box logo type hype shoe, but like poking fun at Supreme or something. But I can't knock anybody for like getting swept up in it, right? Like I do over certain things, like unabashedly, without any hesitation, get stuck on like, black and orange color combos on sneakers, Allen Iverson shoes. Like, I mean, it's like seriously a problem for me. And so I can't knock that. But at the same time, if that's the only thing that you're pushing out there, then it's not going to be something that like most people can relate to. Now, thinking about the basketball court in San Francisco, if you were to take that shoe and even the KD 13, right? Like it doesn't have to be, it could be any model, but like take the KD 13, you throw that color palette on the shoe and then take that shoe to that court and tie those things together for consumers. People can then look at that and be like, damn, KD built a court in San Francisco in a relatively, not good neighborhood. I don't know if you can actually say that in San Francisco at this point because everything's so expensive, but the whole story could be really cool. And to me, there hasn't been a lot of that with the KD line for quite a few years. So I tend to just think that a lot of that has to do with his, what has it been? It's basically been 2 full years of him being hurt, right? So, that to me is kind of a sign that he needs to have a little bit more love, to Robbie's point about LeBron being the top dog at Nike and having, PEs all the time. KD hasn't had the opportunity to like go that far in recent years. And you can kind of see that they've pulled back even in the number of colorways that released over the past, 2, 3, 4 years, it seems like.
So you brought up a lot of good points of like colorways and making connections. I have a couple Kevin Durants here that I think all do those things. So I think the first off, easiest one to kind of single out is the creamsicle Kevin Durant. So the KD2 creamsicle, Nick, is one of your favorite sneakers in terms of like team moments, but that one definitely had the colorway, the story, the design, everything kind of came in together and played very well.
I mean, yeah, that's one of those colorways that I think they did a couple times because it looked so good on that particular shoe. I mean, the creamsicle. Yeah, I don't have much to say about it. I mean, it is one of those. I think it's a classic KD colorway. I mean, at least for the time he was with OKC.
Yeah, I mean, I think that, for me was, obviously I'm a big fan of orange, but that was like just such a cool thing to see as a basketball fan, because you don't get to see that very often anymore, where an entire team will, lace up a player's shoes and, show support. And I think maybe that might even be like a nostalgia thing for me. I mean, now you see coaches wearing sneakers all the time, but one of the coolest things as a kid I remember is seeing Phil Jackson wear the black and red, black cement Jordan 4, when Michael was playing, right? Like, and as a kid seeing a coach wear, a pair of Jordans, you didn't at 10 years old, you didn't realize that Phil Jackson was a former basketball player. You just see him as like a head coach in the NBA. And to think of him wearing those shoes with the suit was just like such a crazy thing for me. And I think KD's creamsicle is the pinnacle of that as far as the team moment goes. And still one of my favorite KDs to this day because of it. And it just like seeing all those guys on ESPN on the bench wearing those bright ass orange shoes. And, you just don't get to see that very often, especially with the way, there's dozens of sneaker companies out there trying to sign people to deals. So you don't even see like consistency from brands, but at that moment, a majority of the team in Oklahoma City was actually, tied to Nike or free agent in a sense to where they could wear those shoes in supporting KD.
That was just a really fun time with Kevin Durant because he was known as like a nice guy. There were no expectations really for him to lead a team to a championship. We're always enjoying his scoring. And while we're kind of talking about the KD2, there was an unreleased sample called Horse. Now, you might know this if you've seen SportsCenter the past couple days, but the NBA is talking about bringing back like a horse competition where players are in their own home gym and are playing horse long distance. But All-Star Weekend in the late 2000s used to have games of horse as a part of it. And Kevin Durant was the 2-time champion of horse. So he had a horse PE for the KD2 and the KD3. So I'll use that as the segue to where his shoes really started getting interesting. I mean, they had some dope stuff. There was all the OKC colorways that were, your stock black, orange, and blue. But they had a really clean EA Sports colorway. There was a scoring title one that was really interesting. The All-Star pair was this really cool gradient red. The Christmas, a.k.a. yellow lights, were really clean. Just a lot of good options. And I actually had a pair of KD3s. I got them for like $45 while working at Nike. And they were just like the black and pair with like the orangey red laces. And those were really crispy for just being a black basic basketball shoe. But it had a little bit of flair to it. Like, any threes stand out in your mind?
The three that stands out to me was the Washington Redskins colorway. It was like that burgundy with the gum outsole. I mean, there were a lot of great colorways on the shoe, but I ended up picking up a pair of those back in the day for like $20 at like Ross or Marshalls or something. And I thought the shoe was super dope. I don't know if I still have them. They might be in storage, but I think I might have given them away because I was just moving around a lot at that time. But I think the other thing too with that, you know, those first few is, you know, like reiterating like the storytelling aspect of it, right? Like the horse thing is such a cool thing. And I remember that horse KD2 because it was all 3M on the upper, right? I mean, that's like bananas. If you did that with any of his shoes and you had that story of like, yeah, he won, 10 years ago, 10 years later, most people might not even remember that or know that. But to me, that's what makes a great shoe, you know, a long living great shoe in a sense.
Yes.
Yeah, man, I remember, I guess it had to be about 2010, 2011. I think it might have been 2011 when I was going to, I went to Nice Kicks in Austin, and I was just there visiting some buddies that went to UT, and they had a pair of the KD3 Christmases on sale, and I just remember they were on their sales table, but they were like a half size too big, so I ended up not buying them. And it's one of those ones I kind of kicked myself. I'm like, you could just put on 2 pairs of socks. It would have been all right. They were like $75 just sitting there. Ended up buying like a pair of like Pegasus or something.
Especially with basketball shoes, a half size doesn't make up a lot of difference. So, I mean,
yeah.
we're not really going to go through every single KD because there's just a ton of them, but just we'll kind of wrap up on the 4 just to prove the point that there was a time and even a buildup to when Kevin Durant shoes were really thoughtful and creative. And I would almost even say youthful because, you know, keep in mind, he was very young. He only played 1 year at Texas, but he would have stuff calling out to his mom and even, you know, University of Texas PEs. But it all kind of comes to the forefront with the KD4, which I think most people are still stuck in the past and will forever think that's the best KD ever made. But that was really like the tipping point of his popularity with shoes and just the insane colorways behind them. You know, for me, if I had to choose one of the bunch, I thought about it more, and it would definitely be the Galaxy because just that silver 3M upper, the little horse on it, the Galaxy print on the inside. It was just so cool. He was just young, jumping around, happy, wasn't burning people on Twitter. It was just like a really simple, fun time. And yeah, the 4 was just, for me, it still is the best. But what do you guys think about kind of that being like the high point for him?
Oh, I 100% agree with you, man. The KD4 was hands down my favorite KD, and I think the best KD that there's been at this point. It's hard for me to pick one because I was going through them again too, and I'm like, the scoring title was an awesome one. The Black History Month for that year was legit. I mean, of course, Nerf and Weatherman are just all-time classic sneakers to begin with. The first ever Unt Pearl was just an amazing-looking sneaker. And I think two of my favorites that are actually attainable at this point are the Year of the Dragon, that all blue with the dragon detailing on it, and then the Rogue Green, which everyone liked to call Undefeated, which were a general release, but I think they only were at certain stores. I remember Finish Line got them, but other stores didn't, and I never was able to actually find it in person. But it's definitely one I like to add to the collection.
Yeah, I think it'll be really tough unless KD, unless we get the NBA back and KD either, wins a scoring title or a championship or both, or MVP, whatever that looks like. I don't know that you'll have the kind of energy that you had around the KD4, mainly because the shoe itself, I think it was a progression of the first 3, but also it was it was definitely different than the first three, right? It like stood out. So I think the colorways that were on the 4, the Nerf is by far my favorite. That would be one of the KDs that I would love to see retro if it does happen. The Black History Month one is also a favorite. And then like, I think that rogue green kind of like military looking with the almost like undefeated looking with the rogue green, but it was kind of that dark brown, or not dark brown, like that dark green, like light brown with orange accents. All those, like I could, if they were at retail right now, I'd be interested in copping pairs of them, just because I think they look so good. But, one thing that I think that the KD line did do a good job with that people forget about is there was a lot of like, I guess, out there colorways that landed on the 6. The Aunt Pearl, what was the floral one? I forget the version of the KD 6 that it was.
That was the Aunt Pearl. Was the floral one?
Well, there was like an embroidered floral one.
Oh, that was like the EXT, wasn't it?
Yeah, EXT.
Yeah.
And then you had like that preheat, like that whole thing was, it was like they really pushed the envelope there. And maybe it didn't do as well as I thought it would, but like I felt like they backed off on the crazy colorways after that happened.
Yeah, which is crazy because the KD6 is actually pretty legit when it comes to. I mean, you also had the meteorology colorway. It was to play off the weatherman, but this one was like heat mapping. It was black and it had like the red heat mapping on it, which was really cool. They tried to do it with the foam positive at the same time, but it just did not have the same effect. Then you had that, was the Bamboo 6. It was like a metallic green with like brown accents. The 6 was super awesome, and it was a really low cut, and I think it was one of those shoes that where it translated well on and off the court. So I think you're right. That's another one that I would put that below the 4 in kind of like the pecking order of KDs.
Yeah. The 6 has like one of the most uncomfortable tongues in the history of tongues. It like cut into your foot so bad. I was telling Mike before recording, I've owned probably like 12 pairs of KDs, various models, and I sold every single pair once he went to the Warriors. I was definitely on that KD's a snake boat. So I completely offloaded everything. But even beyond the 6, there was good 8s, there was good 7s, there was really good KD 7s. They've never really been bad, especially when you think about how hooked up college teams are. I mean, Oregon, Arizona, Michigan, Duke, Kentucky, all these schools get insane, gorgeous Kevin Durant PEs every single year. And it just shows that they can do it, just you got to be like a D1 athlete to get that kind of love. We could talk all day about Kevin Durant, but I think the ultimate theme is that the 13 feels a little uninspired, might have hit the fever pitch at about the 4, and then it kind of started coming into its own at the 2 with some fading between like the 5 and 12.
Right? Yeah, definitely. Yeah. So my question for you guys would be, like, do you think KDs should or will be retroed, let's say, in the next 3-4 years? And if you could have 3 KDs retroed, what would they be?
Oh, dude, I think they should be retroed. That was it, Art of a Champion or whatever it was called, that pack when they had all the different shoes from past champions. They brought back a 4 in that Thunderstruck colorway. Clearly, I think they're priming us for it, hopefully. But the 3 I want to get my hands on would be the KD4 Galaxy, probably all KD4s actually, the KD4 Nerf, and then the KD4 Yuta Dragon. I'd be all 4s, but I'm okay with that.
That's the one you're going with? I mean, I'm going to have to say the PE route. So either like the Oregon KD 11s were really clean. So were the Yukons. Dukes, Kentucky 12s are really cool. But yeah, I want to see not just a retro. I mean, if we're going retro, here's a really weird one. Give me the Liger KD6s. Those are pretty cool.
Those are interesting.
But yeah, I want to see some college stuff drop. You don't have to put the schools on it. Just let me get some of these gorgeous, weird ass colorways.
Yeah, I think for me, I gotta go creamsicles at the very top. That one I would just love to get my hands on. The next one would be the KD2 creamsicle. The next one's probably Nerfs. I think, growing up in that era, it was just like the perfect kind of combination of nostalgia for me, sneakers and Nerf basketball. And then probably that, I don't know, probably that the other four, the Rogue Green 4, kind of the undefeated looking colorway. But I mean, the more I think about it too, I actually think the 7 was pretty solid, except for, it was crazy heavy with that like posit type material, in my opinion. But the colorways, like if you could take the great colorways of the KD line and apply it to that silhouette, it would make for some interesting shoes, in my opinion.
Yeah, dude, 7 wasn't bad. I actually had the Weatherman 7s, and they were cool to wear just again casually. I tried to play on them, but they are pretty heavy with that posit on the back. They seem pretty uneven when you play on them.
All right. Well, I mean, that's a pretty solid rundown of the KD line. Let us know what you guys think of the KD line. You think we'll see retros soon? Would you cop retros? I mean, obviously the Thunderstruck, like Mike said, kind of primes us for it, but there's way too many good ones kind of left back in history. And, next year would technically be 10 years for the KD4. So I wouldn't be surprised if we see it. But as always, we appreciate all of you for sticking with us and tuning in. If you got a couple extra minutes while you're staying at home, give us a review on iTunes, or maybe even consider joining us on Patreon. We drop additional episodes of the podcast over there, and kind of just talk trash with our patron members about sneakers and life stuff. So we would appreciate it. And my name is Nick Engvall. You can follow me at Nick Engvall on all platforms. More importantly, just follow at Sneaker History on all the platforms. We're on YouTube, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, Tumblr, probably someplace else, SoundCloud. I don't know. But anyway, guys, let them know how they can find you.
Everywhere. You guys can find me at Instagram and Twitter at MadWatcher789 or YouTube at Mike Guillory. Robbie, where can they find you?
You can find me at RAHBEE702.
Right on. Well, thank you all for listening, and we'll catch you next time. Peace.
See you.
Bye.
Hey everyone, this is Nick again. Before you take off, I wanted to ask a couple favors of you. If you're interested in more content from the Sneaker History crew, become a member of our Patreon page, where we post daily content, drop exclusive episodes, and host monthly giveaways. We'll even help you hunt for your grails. Check us out at patreon.com/sneakerhistory. Also, make sure you sign up for our email newsletter at sneakerhistory.com/email. We send out weekly updates on the footwear business and what we're working on here at Sneaker History. Last but not least, take a second to tell someone you like their kicks today. You never know how much it means to someone, and it might even plant the seeds for something even bigger. As always, we appreciate you, and we'll catch you next time. Peace. Hey everyone, this is Nick again. Before you take off, do us a solid and head over to Apple Podcasts to leave us a review. Give us a rating on Spotify and Amazon Music, and make sure you're subscribed to our YouTube channel, because we have even more video content coming soon. Speaking of new content, we have an amazing community of sneaker enthusiasts that hang out in our Sneaker History Discord on a daily basis. While sneakers is a connection point that brought us all together, we've all discovered countless shared passions that we have in common with each other. We recently launched a couple of new podcasts directly from our community. One of them is a Formula One podcast. If you're an F1 fan like me, the Exhaust Notes podcast is your weekly fix of Formula One fun. It's hosted by myself, Rohit Malhotra, and Todd Yates. New episodes drop every Tuesday. I've been wearing fitted hats for years and collecting my favorite teams since I was a little leaguer. It has been awesome to see so many new fans getting into fitteds in recent years. Crown and Stitch is our new talk show about fitted hats with Dexter, Keith, and myself, where we talk about fitted hats, snapbacks, throw in some obscure hats because we all kind of like some funky stuff once in a while, don't we? Copping, collecting, and so much more. New episodes drop every Wednesday. Hit the links in the show notes for this episode to give our new shows a listen, and be on the lookout for more new podcasts dropping soon. Last but not least, tell someone you like their kicks today. You never know how far a simple compliment can take you, and we all know how good it feels to have someone show their appreciation. Thank you all for the support, and we'll catch you on the next episode. Peace.